Rising. Grand Rising. Hope everyone's doing well. Grand Rising to the esteemed panel. LJ Free, Copy Indio, No Sellout, and Bones H. McCoy. How's everyone doing?
Grand Rising, everyone.
Grand Rising.
Well, this way.
Year. Grand Rising, y'all.
Peace.
For those in the chat, please let us know y'all can hear us by putting the ones in the air. In the air. I mean, in the chat. Put them in the chat. I won't be able to say
in the club.
Ain't gonna confirm
In
nothing.
the ether. Put it in the ether.
We're gonna be sitting here for 2 hours trying to figure out if anybody said yes to the one. Yeah. In the chat, please, people. Until everybody is on a video call, in the chat will do just fine.
Oh, my volume is low. Okay, let me see if I can. Is that better?
TMH just be laughing loud. He don't talk loud.
Thanks. Grown folks, I tell you. Is that better?
2 2 1 2.
1 2 1 2. Alright. Alright, so it's another day. Marlon P said that's a little better. I'm gonna see if I can. What else I can do? Yeah, I'm in a different setup today, so.
Another hard hat day.
I know, right? Another hard hat day. So why you laughing? Why you laughing?
Bring a helmet to work day or something. Like, just bring anything to protect your head. We're trying to supply the good quality head protection right now, but if you got your own anything, a pillow, something, put it on top of your head.
You need more than a pillow.
That's just to make you feel better. You see a pillow, you feel better. I ain't gonna say it's gonna work, but maybe you have your own insurance.
Is that any better? Can y'all hear me? Nope. 1 2 1 2. Can y'all hear me?
Peace, Oak Cliff Tiff.
All right, cool.
Grand Rising, sis.
Just in the background doing some last updates on the site real quick. We got the first gig of shipping records up on the form.
Oh, yeah.
Also, the genealogy part of the form has been updated too as well.
So let me go ahead and say my Grand Rising to everyone. Grand Rising Marlon P. Grand Rising Mr. TJ. Grand Rising Oak Cliff Tiff. Grand Rising Big Hawk. Grand Rising
Marlon P. Grand Rising Big Hawk.
Peace, Mr. TJ.
Can y'all hear me?
Tropical Queen, peace.
Oh, y'all can't even hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Let me go back to what I was.
What the panel think about so far of everything that we've been going through so far to this point?
It's mind-blowing for me. Like, it's surreal because it's information pieces to the puzzle I know I've personally been looking for a very long time. And it answers a lot of questions that weren't being answered prior and that I couldn't find directly. It didn't seem like from any place else. So I know for me, it's been extremely fulfilling. And then also to see the impact that it has on the ones around me, or just even the ones who hear about the information, is just amazing. So, So, I'm really excited about what comes next. Although I must admit that, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with everything. But I'm excited about what's next.
Is that any better?
It's mind blowing for me. Like, it's kind of, it's surreal because it's information pieces to the puzzle I know I've personally been looking for a very long time. And it answers a lot of questions that weren't being answered prior and that I couldn't find directly. It didn't seem like from any place else. So I know for me, it's been extremely fulfilling. And then also to see the impact that it has on the ones around me, or just even the ones who hear about the information, is just amazing. So I'm really excited about what comes next. Although I must admit that Yeah, you definitely need a hard hat going through it. Like you definitely do. 'Cause, yeah, the information is a doozy.
So look, I had it set up to the other going through the channel mixer where the chat could hear me, but y'all couldn't hear me. Mr. TJ said they done muted TMH. No, they didn't mute me. I had to change the settings.
Antonio
You muted
says,
yourself.
I sound like a mini me yelling from the bottom of a pipe.
What
Okay,
the?
so obviously there's some
Is this a
kind
sewer
of
pipe? Is this a
technical
drainage
difficulty.
pipe? What is
Yeah,
this?
right.
I'm like, all right,
A flood? What is
all
this?
right.
A drainage?
Say,
You
okay.
still coming up with hard hats?
You know what? See,
This
that's because
man
he
done
was in
had
the
a
bottom
hard
of the
hat
pipe
on.
before, screaming for help.
What is this a SpongeBob SquarePants? Like,
Why you must keep your hard hats on at all times.
Macadon once said we gonna need counseling after this. Probably.
Somebody said there's an echo. Or Copper Color Queen said there's an echo. You still got an echo? Check, check. Mic check.
Yeah, let me
2
know.
2 1 2.
Let me know if there's echo here.
Who's the echoer?
Mic check, 1 2.
is it me? 1 2, mic check.
It's still an echo.
Let me see.
All right, I'm going on mute. See if it ain't me.
So is there echo now?
Oh, it's me. Copper Color Queen said it's me. Let me try to go out and come back in.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
2 2 1 2.
Antonio says y'all wouldn't be able to record hard out here for a pimp with these mics. Hey man, look, I left the professional mic at the office. Sorry.
And those lyrics are not for our show, sir.
Yeah,
We can't be.
that'd be more beats than anything.
We whooping this information.
I almost went there with y'all. Like, you know what? I ain't doing it.
No.
I ain't gonna do it.
Don't do it.
Please don't.
Please don't do it. We're trying to get it started somehow.
Any better? Mic check.
Do that.
Can you hear me? Really? Seriously?
We hear you.
I can hear you. I don't know about this crowd.
Well, just because. Antonio says everybody need to drop off one at a time. So is that okay? Copper Color Queen says it's better. Okay, so from right now, don't nobody listen to Antonio.
Yeah, don't get you messed up.
Thank you, Copper Color Queen.
Hey,
Appreciate
you jump
you.
out the window. Ain't no fire.
Exactly. It's like, man, why you do that? Dusting glass out in there.
Right. I was just playing with you. You jumped in that dumpster.
You jumped in that dumpster for real. Come out that dumpster. You got me in this alley anyway. The perfectly fine street over there to walk down and jump in the dumpsters.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the public service announcement so we can go ahead and get started. Thank you. This episode of Cab Grand Rising is brought to you by a Toxinist Assembly, where the work gets done. Toxinist Assembly is a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising up Indigenous Americans' voices by using genealogy, also known as family history, which is the study of families and the tracing of their lineage and history. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and pedigrees of its members. Our core values are the foundation of our company, which are essential to our success and serve as a lens through which we evaluate every business decision. Those core values are, but are not limited to, integrity, which is knowing and doing what is right. Respect, treating others the way you want to be treated. Responsibility, embrace opportunities to contribute. Servant leadership, serve the common good. And in the Toxinist Assembly, We are here to help you do your genealogy and help you find whatever tribe it is that you either believe you belong to or that you actually belong to, whether it be American Indian, Native American, Métis, Black Dutch, Black Irish, Huguenot, you name it, we'll help you find it.
Facts.
Also, if you should choose to participate in the information that we provide that will help you become financially independent, we will assist you by giving you access to all the resources we have free of charge. And if you should take those resources and not only help yourself, but also help your relatives, your community, and even your tribe, we would do that too. That's even better. We are not suggesting that you should join a tribe, and we're not saying that the only way to become financially independent is to join a tribe. But what we are suggesting is that by finding out who your tribe is, you at least know where you come from. And then what you do from there is totally up to you. We're not here to tell you who you are, and we're not here to tell you who you are not, and we're definitely not here to get into your personal business. And the only time we'll bring up something that's outside of our scope or our expertise is if someone in the chat brings it up and they need some clarity, and we'll do research and bring you the verifiable facts. And with that, back to the panel.
I can't drop no bombs, but if you can press that bomb button, I appreciate that interest.
I can press the bomb.
Hey, that was good. That was a good one right there.
That was a good
one. Something about the rising, isn't it? Something about the rising.
Something about the rising. I hope everybody has their hard hat on, because let's just go ahead and clear the path and make it known where we at. So here we go. Then there's, of course, the warning. And the warning is coming. So get ready for it. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.
So you know what time it is. You know where we at. You know what we about to do. So, all right, Bones, go ahead and hit him with what you found. Go ahead. Tell him.
Question is, where to start?
Oh, let's start with what you found when you was uploading information on the forum.
Oh, just uploading these shipping records, going through, making sure everything uploaded nice and neat. You know how you scroll through some files real quick. Fast scrolled and it stopped, and the screen stopped on information dealing with the Huguenots and them on ships and names coming over to America. It was just weird, not even looking for it.
And it just popped up, huh?
The screen just stopped on you on that part.
Just stopped right on them. To the point, I took the picture. I had to put it in screenshot. I'm like, hold on, man. I don't want to see these folks no more.
So they do exist.
On the files I'm talking about, like I said earlier when we started, the first gigabyte of shipping records is loaded up on the form. You'll find it on the form under shipping, and that's just 1 gig out of the 3 terabytes to go.
Yeah, and for those of you who have actually registered on the form, let me go ahead and get a new members a shout out right quick. Let me go ahead and do that. Take care of that right now. Let me do this. Members. All right. So I want to give a shout out to David Corey for registering in the forum, Copper Colored Gal for registering, Old Cliff Tiff. Welcome to the Autochthonous Assembly Forum. So hopefully y'all was able to see what we was going to be talking about today, because I dropped it in the forum pretty much right after the show. Gives you the opportunity to look at the links so you can go in, do some research and see where we're going, and have an opportunity to do your own research and bring up some good points and even correspond with us in the chat in the forum. So hopefully y'all are able to do that, or you take advantage of it, because it's going to only allow us to do a better job of exposing this information. So we're talking about the Reconstruction era and how the...
My bad, Mitch. I was on mute.
No, go ahead. What you got to say?
It definitely is a good resource to have, because if you find yourself in conversation with somebody and you're trying to tell them something you just learned about and you have no idea how to tie it in, you just plug it into the forum. Go to the forum. We have all the links there of the stuff that we're talking about, so you won't be scatterbrained when you're trying to regurgitate some information that you just found out. So yeah, my bad, TMH.
No,
I was saying all that on mute, so if it come out as good the second time, I apologize.
It's all good. It's all good, bro. And also too, as we go through the day and we find stuff, we'll continue to post the links in the chat, in the forum chat. So what you'll find is that there's more stuff in there than what we actually dropped on the show. So, and you'll always be able to add to the forum as well as you so choose. So we're going to be talking about the Reconstruction era, and we're going to be breaking down how our ancestors, the copper-colored American Indians, went from landowners or stewards of the land to tenants and even renters. So that's what we're going to be covering pretty much today. And of course, the French, they did it again. Yeah, it's Bones is going to be dropping some information that's going to be mind-blowing. Grand Rising Celestial Love, Grand Rising Pamela Hall. Hope y'all are doing well. We're on the top of the Reconstruction era, and I'm about to drop that into the chat. And we're going to be talking about how our ancestors, the copper-colored American Indians, went from stewards of the land to tenants, meaning renters. So, anything anybody want to say before we get started? Get your hard hats, all that good stuff, or brace yourselves. Anybody on the panel?
Keep your head on the swivel at all times.
Bones, you might want to. I don't know if you did it already. You might want to dial in too, because you're breaking up early in the broadcast. So just a heads up. All right, so we're gonna talk about the Reconstruction era. This is coming from the Wikipedia page, and as you know, we like to find out and make sure that the pages that we use have sources, so that not only are you looking at the page, but you can also cite the sources, go back to your own research. If there's anything that's inaccurate or there's a dispute about it, we always invite you to let us know. Send us an email, put it in the forum, or even put it in the chat. Just make sure you bring your proof with you, because we want to make sure we get it right. It's not about being right. So let's talk about this Reconstruction era, shall we? It said there was a period in American history which lasted from 1863 to 1877. It was a significant chapter in the history of American civil rights. The term has two implications. The first applies to the complete history of the entire country from 1865 to 1877, following the American Civil War, which we already know. Hold on, let me go ahead and let Bones in. All right. And we know that the American Civil War was basically a war between the Union and what they call the blacks, which were nothing more than a big conglomeration of different peoples, from everyone from Matisse to people of color to mulatto, Melungeon, five civilized tribes, Black Dutch, Black Irish, copper-colored American Indian. You name it, it was probably lumped into that black or Negro category. It said the second to attempted the transformation of the 11 former Confederate states from 1863 to 1877 as directed by Congress. Pamela Hall says I need to turn the music down a little bit. All right, give me a second. All right, hopefully that helps. All right. It says Reconstruction ended the remnants of Confederate secession and ended slavery, making the newly free slaves citizens with civil rights ostensibly guaranteed by the new constitutional amendments. Now remember, at this particular point in time, when they say free slaves, they're not just talking about people, quote unquote, of color or individuals that are supposed to be our ancestors from Africa. They're talking about the Slavs, the individuals that came over here that were indentured servants and also were serving under slavery. And then the newly indoctrinated or the newly self-proclaimed Slavs, who were your Matisse and Native Americans and copper-colored Indians, who were declaring themselves as Black Dutch, Black Irish, Black Turks, because they wanted to keep their land, buy more land, and stay on the east and the southeast, versus moving out to Oklahoma during the Trail of Tears. So when they say slaves, those are the individuals that they're talking about. It says 3 visions of the Civil War memory appeared during Reconstruction. The reconciliationist vision, which was rooted in coping with the death and devastation of the war, had brought. The white supremacist vision, which included segregation and preservation of the traditional cultural standards of the South, and the emancipation vision, which sought full freedom, citizenship, and constitutional equality for, they have African Americans, we'll just put blacks and Negroes that we know from the Matisse all the way to our copper-colored American Indian descendants or ancestors. When President Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, was assassinated at the end of the Civil War, Vice President Andrew Johnson, a Democrat from Tennessee and former slaveholder, became president. Johnson favored rapid measures to bring the South back into the Union, allowing the Southern states to determine the rights of former slaves. So already we see that that's going to be a problem, because the emancipation had been signed, but it was not enforceable because you had 2 presidents, one for the North and one for the South. So now they're in the process of bringing the South back up under the umbrella of the colonies and to become a United States. Abraham Lincoln, the president, was shot, and now you have Andrew Johnson, who's a former slaveholder, now looking at allowing the Southern states to determine the rights of the former slaves or Slavs. Radical Republicans in Congress sought stronger federal measures to upgrade the rights of the African Americans, including the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, while curtailing the rights of former Confederates, such as through the provisions of the Wade-Davis bill. Johnson, the most prominent Southerner to oppose the Confederacy, followed a lenient policy toward ex-Confederates. Lincoln's last speeches show that he was leaning towards supporting the enfranchisement of all freedmen, whereas Johnson and the Democratic Party were strongly opposed to this. So, Oak Tip says Wade and Davis are my relatives. My granny is Wade and married to Davis. Now that's interesting, Oak Cliff. So let's look at what the Wade-Davis bill is. Put it in the chat. It reads that the Wade-Davis bill of 1864 was a bill proposed for the Reconstruction of the South, written by two radical Republicans, Senator Benjamin Wade of Ohio and Representative Henry Winter Davis of Maryland, in opposition to President Abraham Lincoln's more lenient 10% plan. The bill made readmittance to the Union for former Confederate states contingent on a majority in each ex-Confederate state to take the ironclad oath to the effect they had never in the past supported the Confederacy. The bill passed both houses of Congress on July 2nd, 1864, but was pocket vetoed by Lincoln and never took effect. The radical Republicans were outraged that Lincoln did not sign the bill. Lincoln wanted to mend the Union by carrying out the 10% plan. He believed it would be too difficult to repair all the ties within the Union if the Wade-Davis bill had passed. Grand Rising, Kerry. Let's look at what this ironclad oath is. The ironclad oath was an oath promoted by radical Republicans and opposed by President Abraham Lincoln during the American Civil War. The Republicans intended to prevent political activity of ex-Confederate soldiers and supporters by requiring all voters and officials to swear they had never supported the Confederacy. Given the temporary disenfranchisement of the numerous Confederate veterans and local civic leaders, a new Republican biracial coalition came to power in the 11 southern states during Reconstruction. Southern conservative Democrats were angered to have been disenfranchised. Stop right there. It said a new Republican biracial coalition. What do they mean by biracial? What races were they talking about? And they don't even give us a link. Let's see if I can look it up. Biracial coalition. Let's see, biracial coalition politics and see what it gives me. Doesn't give me a definition. Well, I know if we do biracial by itself. Concerning or containing members of two racial groups. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, involving members of two races. All right. So what do y'all think those two races were? Just out of curiosity. In the South, it couldn't have been nothing more than European and Indian, right? If we had to guess. So we'll stick to that until proven otherwise.
It makes me think of I'm sorry. I think I found something. I'm gonna post it here in the chat. Momentarily.
All right, that's fine. So that was an ironclad oath that we just read. So we know that the Wade Davis bill had been pocket vetoed by Abraham Lincoln. And then Andrew Johnson probably was looking to pass it again. So let's continue to read. It says Lincoln's last speech showed that he was leaning towards supporting the enfranchisement of all freedmen. So what does enfranchisement mean? So when I click on the enfranchisement link, it gives me suffrage. Let me try this again. Let me try typing it. I get nothing for enfranchisement, but
I have a dictionary definition here.
go ahead.
And this is to grant a franchise to or to admit to citizenship, especially to the right of voting. Second meaning is to endow a city or constituency, etc., with municipal or parliamentary rights. And the third is to set free, to liberate as from slavery.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Copper.
No problem.
Okay, so that's what Lincoln was leaning towards, the enfranchisement of all freedmen. Whereas Johnson and the Democratic Party was strongly opposed to that. And freedman is a formerly enslaved man or woman. So the Democratic Party was not looking towards that, even though Lincoln was. But Lincoln was no longer alive at this particular time. So let's see what Johnson does. Oak Cliff Tip says Franchi. Johnson's weak Reconstruction policies prevailed until the congressional elections in 1866. Those elections followed outbreaks of violence against blacks in the former rebel states, including Memphis Rise of 1866 and the New Orleans Riot that same year. The subsequent 1866 election gave Republicans a majority in Congress, enabling them to pass the 14th Amendment, federalizing equal rights for freedmen, and dissolve rebel state legislation until new state constitutions were passed in the South. A Republican coalition came to power in nearly all the southern states and set out to transform the society by setting up a free labor economy using the U.S. Army and the Freedmen's Bureau. Read that again. The Republican coalition came to power in nearly all the southern states and set out to transform the society by setting up a free labor economy using the U.S. Army and the Freedmen's Bureau. The Bureau protected the legal rights of freedmen, negotiated labor contracts, and set up schools and churches for them. Thousands of Northerners came south as missionaries, teaching businessmen and politicians. Hostile whites began referring to these politicians as carpetbaggers. In early 1866, Congress passed the Freedmen's Bureau and Civil Rights Bills and sent them to Johnson for his signature. The first bill extended the life of the Bureau, originally established as a temporary organization charged with assigning refugees and freed slaves, while the second defined all persons born in the United States as national citizens with equality before the law. After Johnson vetoed the bills, Congress overrode his veto, making the Civil Rights Act the first major bill in the history of the United States to become law through an override of a presidential veto. The radicals in the House of Representatives, frustrated by Johnson's opposition to congressional reconstruction, filed impeachment charges. Now that part I didn't know. The action failed by one vote in the Senate. The new national construction laws, in particular laws requiring suffrage the right to vote for freedom, incensed white supremacists in the South, giving rise to the Ku Klux Klan. During 1867 and 69, the Klan murdered Republicans and outspoken freedmen in the South, including Arkansas Congressman James M. Hines. Now, Bones, you had the some information about the founder of the Ku Klux Klan, right? Doodle Vision said the Brother Johnson Strawberry Letter. Let's see. Who founded the Ku Klux Klan? So, well, we know. So this will tell you. Mr. TJ say Duke. Now, David Duke was a little too young when this first came out. But here's one thing that we can find out. It says, taking inspiration from D.W. Griffin's 1950 silent film *The Birth of a Nation*, which mythologized the founding of the first Klan, it employed marketing techniques and popular fraternal organization structure. Rooted in local Protestant communities, it sought to maintain white supremacy, often took a prohibition stance, and it opposed Catholics and Jews, while also stressing its opposition to alleged political power of the Pope and the Catholic Church. Who does that sound like to y'all? Or should I say, who does that sound like to y'all? Huguenots, maybe? I don't know.
Perhaps.
So,
a little more perhaps, but
yeah. Doodle Vision says, if you have not watched Birth of a Nation, please watch it.
Oh, the first Klan. Mic check. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. The first Klan was founded in Tennessee on December 24th, 1865, by 6 former officers of the Confederate Army, as a fraternal social club inspired at least in part by the large defunct Sons of Attila. It was after the war. You had a couple of generals that got together, and that's what formed the KKK. One of the biggest known, well, one of the well-known names is Nathan Bedford Forrest. He was their first Grand Wizard.
Yeah, he was Protestant, right? He was a Huguenot, right?
There's even more. It gets deeper with him. Nathan Bedford Forrest was born on July 13th, 1821 to a poor settler family in a secluded frontier cabin near Chapel Hill Hamlet, then part of Bedford County, Tennessee, but now encompassed in Marshall County. Forrest was the first son of William and Miriam Beck Forrest. His father, William, was of English descent, and most of his biographers state his mother, Miriam, was of Scottish-Irish descent. But then they say you got Memphis Genealogical Society saying that she might have been of English descent.
okay. And anybody that knows about these fraternal orders, the Ku Klux Klan and beyond, knows that a lot of these fellas here were part of a larger order, and I would say the Scottish influence in that is profound. I'm not gonna say any names overtly, but you get what I'm saying. Also, Bones, where exactly was this pact put together to create the Ku Klux Klan?
Oh, the Maxwell House.
Oh.
So think about that. Maxwell House Coffee is named for this hotel. And as,
it's the same company. It's the same company.
Same company.
The last what?
One drop.
The last one dropped. That's right.
So hopefully nobody drinks Maxwell House coffee.
If you do, I'm sorry. Didn't
You
mean
might
to.
want to back
Yeah.
away from coffee altogether, but I have a thread on that in the health and wellness forum. I'm going on mute.
You see how the matrix that's been built around you has not only a sense of humor, but a sense of irony as well.
Indeed.
For those of you who didn't hear that, the Ku Klux Klan was thought of, ratified. They came together and they made this decision to become the Ku Klux Klan in a hotel called Maxwell House, or the Maxwell
That's
House.
where they had their meetings. Yeah, that's where they would have their meetings at too.
They had their
And,
meetings at
KK.
Maxwell House. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bones.
And the Ku Klux Klan came from a group called the Sons of Malta, which is a local lodges in many of the large American cities. It was organized in 1856 by A.G. Barnett and Morton Taylor. Fort Wayne Lodge enrolled many of the prominent men of the day. It was instituted by General Stedman of Toledo, Ohio. Backing up what Copper was saying, they come from a larger fraternity that consisted of most of the high predominant people of the time.
Exactly. And notice the name Malta. Where have we seen this name before? Malta. Malta Cross, the Maltese cross. Same cross the Huguenots wear, just a slight variation of it.
Starting to make sense.
If you notice
A little bit
also,
more history.
I'm sorry.
Quick more history on it real quick. They say the entry for the Sons of Malta in the 1899 Encyclopedia History of St. Louis states that they were a mystic society which came into existence in St. Louis in 1855, and which about the same time seems to have been represented in nearly all the large and many of the smaller cities of the country. It is said to have originated in Mobile, Alabama, once the queen of mystic society cities, and to have been, in a sense, an outgrowth of Mardi Gras festivities. It says the mystic society.
Hold up. You just ain't gonna read that and then gonna not read it again. One more time.
It says the entry for the Sons of Malta is in the 1899 Encyclopedia of History of St. Louis. States that they were a mystic society in which came into existence in St. Louis in 1855, and which about the same time seems to have been represented in nearly all the large and many of the smaller cities of the country. It is said to have originated in Mobile, Alabama, once the queen of mystic, and to have been, in a sense, an outgrowth of Mardi Gras festivities. There's more. The mystic societies of Mobile originally paraded on New Year's Eve and continued to do so until 1861. So any connection of the Sons of Malta to Mobile had nothing to do with Mardi Gras festivals. It says the first Mardi Gras parade secret society, the Mystic Crew of Comos, was founded in New Orleans in 1856, and the first parade was in 1857.
See how much you had to dig through just to get to the truth of the matter? Like, that's ridiculous that they pile so much overlay on top.
Mm-hmm.
Lectio difficilior.
Right. One more thing to add as well, while we're on the subject of secret societies. So the Maxwell House branding has always been blue. Okay, you get Folgers, and Folgers is red, but Maxwell House is always blue. And they tell you in marketing, these two things opposed because they differentiate the branding. But there's something further than that as well. there's something further than that as well, because if you read about Scottish Rite, and we've seen the connection between the two. On the Wikipedia page, and I'll post a link to this as well, it says the Scottish Rite is one of the appendant bodies of Freemasonry that a Master Mason may join for further exposure to the principles of Freemasonry. It is also concordant in that some of its degrees relate to the degrees of symbolic or craft Freemasonry. In England and some other countries, while the Scottish Rite is not accorded officially official recognition, by the Grand Lodge, only a recognized Freemason may join, and there is no prohibition against his doing so. In the United States, however, the Scottish Rite is officially recognized by Grand Lodges as an extension of the degrees of Freemasonry. The Scottish Rite builds upon the ethical teachings and philosophy ordered in the craft or Blue Lodge, through dramatic presentation of the individual degrees. So they're giving you the call signs with this. They're telling you what this comes from, what the Maxwell House is, what the Ku Klux Klan really is. That's the thing about secret societies. And these are not necessarily, those that are in secret societies and these fraternal orders aren't necessarily bad people by association, but we have to understand what we're dealing with. A secret has to be teased out in order to remain a secret, if that makes sense. You leave hallmarks, but you don't say what it is overtly. You suggest it and let people figure it out.
Right. As you can always say, I ain't make you do what you chose.
Exactly, and that is consent.
Whether you were tricked into it or not.
So, everybody's hard hats all right? Everybody good? Yes, Pamela Hall, you can still go to Mardi Gras.
Who that?
That's me. Need to be mobile for a bit. So, get ready. Oh, that's the other me, shall I say. So everybody good while we're in this hard hat zone?
Yep.
Golden Moon says, all this lessons and studies make me look at everything different. And that's what it's designed to do. It's making all of us look at everything different. It's making us question everything that we were ever taught. It's making you look at everything that you ever read and making you look at how we read it and how we perceived it. We're slowly starting to get away from reading for comprehension. We're deconstructing what we're reading so we can actually find out what the real meanings are, or what the dual or triple meanings are. It makes us look at everything differently. At least for me, anyway. So, getting back to the Reconstruction era. Anybody on the panel, if you got, if there's something you want to add or you want to cut in, just let me know. Talked about the carpetbaggers. They tried to impeach him, but it failed. And then it talked about, so we stopped at Ku Klux Klan. Okay, it says, elected in 1868, Republican President Ulysses S. Grant supported congressional reconstruction and enforced the protection of blacks, Negroes. They put African Americans, but I put blacks and Negroes because that's what they were called then, in the South through the use of the Enforcement Act passed by Congress. So what's the Enforcement Act? Let's look at that. Big Hawk says, sounds like more Huguenot supremacy. But wait, there's more. Alright, Enforcement Act. Enforcement Act were the three bills passed by the United States Congress between 1870 and 1871. What was also going on around this time between 18 and 1871? Anybody remember? Massive influx of immigrants. You know,
Yeah,
7.5 million.
you just had them 14 million people show up.
In coffin ship.
Looking for a place to call home.
And so enforcement acts were criminal codes which protected blacks and Negroes' rights to vote, to hold office, to serve on juries, and to receive equal protection of laws. Passed under the president of Ulysses S. Grant, the laws also allowed the federal government to intervene when states did not act to protect these rights. The acts passed following the ratification of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which gave full citizenship to anyone born in the United States or freed slaves, and the 15th Amendment, which banned racial discrimination in voting. At the time, the lives of all newly freed slaves, or Slavs, as well as the political and economic rights were being threatened. This threat led to the creation of the Enforcement Acts. The goal of the Enforcement Acts was to improve conditions for blacks and freed slaves, or Slavs. The main target was the KKK, a racist organization which was targeting blacks and later other groups. Although this act was meant to fight against KKK and help blacks and freedmen, many states were reluctant to take such relatively extreme actions. For several reasons, some politicians at the state and federal levels were either members of the Klan or did not have enough strength to fight the Klan. Another goal of these acts was to achieve national unity by creating a country where all races were considered equal under the law. Now, here's the thing that I find interesting. The reason why I'm laughing because I just looked up in the chat and Antonio says, ATMH, what I missed? I'm acting like I'm working today. So basically what you missed, Antonio, was that the Ku Klux Klan came out of a group called Malta. They held their meetings and they held all their organizations in a building called Maxwell House, which is where the coffee came. Now he's gonna say, "Hold up, really?"
Think about your grandma's last name, Tony. Keep going, TMH.
Thank you. And Copper Indio and Bones were talking about the Scottish Rite and how they had influence on the Ku Klux Klan. Yes, Maxwell House, Ladarian. So that coffee that people, I used to drink Maxwell House. I can't even front. I'm glad I no longer drink it. So yeah, Maxwell House was the name of a building, a hotel that the Ku Klux Klan used to hold all their meetings in. Oh, speaking of that, Bones, didn't you say something that was very interesting about somebody that partners with Maxwell House, who is the owner of a professional football team, who just recently...
Oh, Hines and Kraft.
Oh, he just gonna throw the name out there. I thought he was gonna come in with it softly. Okay.
Oh, y'all know
Thought he was gonna give descriptions of macaroni and cheese or something.
It's a construction site, not a library. No.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna yell then.
Tell him, Fred.
Listen, you just tell me directly. You know, I don't mind.
So, yeah, for those of you who are New England Patriots fans, yeah, the owner of y'all company is a racist.
Would you buy Maxwell House coffee if it had a picture of a Klansman on the front of it?
Of course not. Of course
not. I'm just asking the question.
Well, after going through
Allegedly, everything.
I'm in a scenario. I'm asking a scenario.
Yeah, that is a scenario.
That's not okay?
He said, would I? And no, I would not.
Nor would I, personally.
And that R word in front of his name, so I'm just gonna throw the A word out there.
Well,
allegedly.
So, no. If you partner with the racist, you are racist by default.
Hey, we just uncovered this. It's brown folks sipping that coffee right now that don't know. Maybe he don't. I ain't gonna say.
No, that's the whole point.
You don't get to be a billionaire by not doing your research on companies. So
I didn't know I was a racist.
Let's not do that.
We really doing it for real.
All right. He racist.
So for so
No, I'm joking. Allegedly, I put my name on that, Ricky Bobby.
Go Cliff Tip says, I don't drink coffee. Please don't say anything about Lipton tea. You know what's coming on Cliff Tip.
No, 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 no.
Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on.
The tea drinkers united right now. Wait a minute.
I would press the
She
button.
like, wait a minute.
Show down.
Look, she about to George Bush the button for real.
Wait a minute. Hold on, y'all.
So they took the Kermit the Frog meme down. You be mad?
I don't care about the meme or the Kermit the Frog. Y'all know me.
Just the lip.
But hold on. Why does she sound like the Bionic Man?
That's how I was feeling. Like, please. I was trying to block out hearing anything.
She don't want to hear another. You can't triple stamp or double stamp.
I can deliver it. I can take it too.
Okay, so we all gonna blame Antonio because he interrupted me while I was reading because he wanted to recap. So now you got your recap, Antonio. Thanks.
Thanks, Antonio.
Better stick with the Folgers.
We'll get back to you on that, Lipton. We'll get back to you on Lipton.
Oh.
It's okay, Free.
At this rate, nothing might not be safe. If you can get it out your backyard.
All the more motivation.
So it says
exactly what we're doing.
So it says another goal of these acts was to achieve national unity by creating a country where all races were considered equal under the law. So then it talks about the regulations of the acts. It said it did many things to help freedmen, and the main purpose under the act was the prohibition or prohibited use of violence or any form of intimidation to prevent freedmen from voting and deny them this right. There were many provisions placed under this act, many with serious consequences. The enforcement acts were created as part of a Reconstruction era of the United States following the American Civil War, and in order for full national unity, all citizens had to be accepted and viewed equally, and violence must be prohibited. Pamela Hall says, wow, reading the Enforcement Act in 1870, they were considered as terrorists and got federal time. So what happened over time? You know, they make illegal things no longer illegal, then they make legal things illegal.
Oh, forget about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's old. We don't do that no more. That no longer counts.
Yeah, don't worry about my cousin. Don't worry about what my cousin do.
Yeah, just forget about it.
Right, and so you'll notice with a lot of politicians, especially as we get closer to election season and things like that, you can hear a lot of politicians, a lot of pundits, especially those that identify as progressives. So a lot of people on the left are going to have this narrative that we're progressing, because of course progressivism, we're progressing towards an equality, or at least an equilibrium with the state. And so you see how far back laws were passed for things to be on even, but they didn't stay that way. They also want you to think that since we're progressing, we're more free than we have ever been, and that couldn't be farther from the truth, as you're going to find out as we get through this section on Reconstruction. Because you're going to see that there were those of us that were Aborigines, there were people from this place who owned land, who had plenty of money. Okay, and for those of you that have already started doing your genealogy, I'm sure you've probably found this already. But back in the 1870s, 1880s, a lot of our people bought things with money that they earned. These were not poor people. Sure, they worked on farms and they may have been seen as such for those in more urban areas, but these were not poor people. These were people who worked hard and saved their money. And so the suggestion that, that we somehow have always been poor and this is all post-traumatic slave disorder for all of us is the height of nonsense. I just wanted to put that in there for you guys to understand as we go through this section.
Appreciate that, Copper.
All right.
Exactly. It's definitely something to think about and take into consideration, because as many of us are doing our genealogy, we are finding that a lot of our ancestors owned property, lots of property. Sometimes the property got handed down because they were living in the same house where homes were on the same street for decades, and the houses just got passed down from family member to family member. And you can see that in the census and also in the local census where it breaks down the address. So definitely something to take into consideration, definitely something to look at. And we'll start to see this unfold, and we'll see how a lot of our ancestors actually moved from, like I said earlier, from being tenants or stewards of the land, not tenants, but stewards of the land, to actually being tenants or renters. Sorry about that. That's some background noise. So I'm gonna be reading a little bit further in just a few minutes. I stepped away from my computer, so give me a moment as I get back to it.
I want you to do that also to chat and everyone listening. As we go through a lot of these laws that they put in place on Reconstruction, you'll also notice a lot of them have never been taken down or changed.
Yeah, what you can find, there's a website, and I'm sure many of us have seen it before because it's been up for I want to say almost 20 years. It's called dumblaws.com, and it shows some of the most idiotic laws that are still on the books. And if those laws are still on the books, you can best believe that the laws that are pertaining to the Reconstruction that don't benefit us are still on the books. So let's continue to read. Where did I stop? Okay, so then it talks about it says Grant used the Enforcement Act to effectively combat the Ku Klux Klan, which was essentially wiped out. Although a new incarnation of the Klan eventually would again come to national prominence in 1920s. So that means that the Ku Klux Klan had been stopped from basically from 1880 to 1920, which is almost 30 years. Grand Rising Superfly ass chick. That's the way to get somebody to say a cuss word. Anyway. Nevertheless, President Grant. Oh, I already read that. He said he was unable to get a resolve the escalating tension inside the Republican Party between Northerners on one hand and those Republicans originally hailing from the South on the other. This latter group would be labeled scalawags. Scalawags? Are we serious right now?
I remember learning about that word. Not in this sense.
Hold on. Let me read what scalawags are.
Wait a minute. Rewind. Bring it back.
Scalawags were white Southerners who supported Reconstruction after the Civil War. Like the similar term carpetbagger, the word has a long history of use as a slur in Southern partisan debates. The opponents of the scalawags claimed they were disloyal to traditional values of white supremacy. The term is commonly used in historical studies as a neutral description of Southern white Republicans, although some historians have discarded the term due to its history of pejorative connotations. Wow. Did anybody know that's what a scallywag was?
Not till like 30 seconds ago.
And see, the word comes from a term used. What the scalawag with two A's was originally referred to low grade farm animals. So that's basically what they're referring to these people as, chickens and such.
Good gracious.
Well, why they just say that?
Hey, you got to use a whole bunch of big words, yo. Got to be verbose.
Too many
Right.
labels. Superfly says Project Pat said bald headed scallywag.
That's exactly what I thought about.
We grew up in the neighborhood saying that. And
Yeah, no,
ain't got no hair in the back. So now knowing what it is, I'm like, wow. Wow. Applying wow.
Man. Come on now.
Have we picked up everything?
I know, right?
Every negative thing they had, did we just adopt every negative thing they had? Everything?
Like it.
Hold on.
You got family from the
Hold on.
South.
Y'all need to
That's
look
a
in the
yes.
chat. Superfly got the audacity. Yes, I'm calling you out, Superfly. You got the audacity to have an emoji with a halo. Really? Anyway. I didn't do nothing. How you doing?
Mhm.
How you doing? No sellout? Nothing.
Nothing.
So, dating the Reconstruction era. It says the different states' Reconstruction began and ended at different times. Federal Reconstruction ended with the Compromise of 1877 in decent decades. Most historians follow Fauner in dating the Reconstruction of the South as starting in 1863 with the Emancipation Proclamation and the Port Royal Experiment rather than 1865. The usual ending of Reconstruction has always been 1877. Reconstruction policies were debated in the North when the war began and commenced in earnest after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, issued on January 1st, 1863. Textbooks covering the entire range of American history typically use 1865 through 1877 for their history of the United States, Give Me Liberty. However, in this monogram, Reconstruction, American Unfinished Revolution, 1863 to 1877, is what they use. Okay.
They admitting that they rewrote. Man, listen, if that ain't another admittance right there. School book using 1 year time frame, but in reality it happened in another.
Yeah. So basically, all the work that the Reconstruction Act put forth basically got undone around the 1920s. Y'all know what happened around the 1920s, right?
Yep.
Because let's look at that.
We took on somebody else's name again.
Yeah, to think about it. 1920s, we had the fall of the Negro Wall Street. You had Prohibition. You had, and then 10 years later, or 9 years later, you had the Depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. That's a whole lot. Matter of fact, that's way too much.
Yeah, we got to do a build on the Depression too, especially what we came across dealing with that.
Oh yeah.
Love the subject. Yeah. We're gonna have to do something on that. It ain't go down how you thought it did.
You mean something else happened?
Shit did. Somehow France end up sitting on more than 50% of all the world's gold. And we'll leave that to another note.
That's a good cliffhanger.
That's definitely a good cliffhanger. Let's see what's going on in the chat. If you look, Pamela Hall says, if you look at the Depression time when they burned down, oh man, chat is moving. Slow down, y'all. It says if you look at the Depression time when they burned down Black Wall Street, they hurt themselves. Well, yeah. As we get into that, you'll find out why and what was the cause, or who was the cause of that.
You right.
Something about that new France. It ain't like that new coat.
Mm-mm.
So we done already learned what a scallywag was. We done learned a couple of things today. So let's see. Where do we go now, Bones? Who is it? Oh, we need to talk about. Hold on, where is it at? I gotta find out that one post that I put in. Let me see. Okay, here we go. So this one's gonna make y'all mad or madder, but we gotta put the truth out. So check this out. So now we're looking at it from the standpoint of you have the Southerners, blacks, Negroes, those individuals who range from Matisse to Belungian to Creole, Cajun, to mulatto, to people of color, to Black Dutch, Black Irish, and your copper color American Indian, which were our ancestors, getting harassed. So what do you think they're going to end up doing? What would you do? You would move, right? I mean, I would. Definitely move. So you figure the laws are being created in the North, right? And they favor our ancestors, right? The Negroes, the blacks, and all others that fall up under that category. So why don't we just move north? Well, everything that look good to you ain't good for you. And we was just talking about 1920 when the Ku Klux Klan came back. So let's pick up this story that I put in the chat that's going to basically give you a little history of what Jim Crow did to the Southerners that end up moving north. So it reads, Clyde Ross was born in 1923, the seventh of 13 children near Clarksdale, Mississippi, the home of the blues. Ross's parents owned and farmed a 40-acre tract of land, flush with cows, hogs, and mules. Ross's mother would drive to Clarksdale to do her shopping in a horse and buggy, in which she invested all the pride one might place in a Cadillac. The family owned another horse with a red coat, which they gave to Clyde. The Ross family wanted for little, save that which all black families in the Deep South then desperately desired, the protection of the law. In the 1920s, Jim Crow Mississippi was in all facets of society a kleptocracy. The majority of the people in the state were perpetually robbed of the vote, a hijacking engineered through the trickery of the poll tax and the muscle of the lynch mob. Between 1882 and 1968, more black people were lynched in Mississippi than any other state. You and I know you and I know what's the best way to keep the nigger from voting. Blustered Theodore Bilbo, a Mississippi senator and a proud Klansman. You do it the night before the election. So then it goes on to read the state's regime partnered robbery of the franchise with robbery of the purse. Many Mississippi black farmers lived in owed taxes. So instead of them basically oh no, we still alive, right?
I was about to ask you that because I heard the music stop abruptly.
Yeah, the
So,
music stuff. The music is back. I gotta adjust the volume. All
oh no,
right.
we're still alive. I got a stream
Okay.
still going over here.
Yeah. Sorry about that, y'all. There was a glitch in the matrix. My bad. So peonage is basically when you have declared, meaning our ancestors have declared that they are now Black Irish and Black Dutch, right? And the reason again why they did this, for those who are just coming in, um, uh, American Indian copper colored ancestors, to stay on their land and be able to purchase more land that was reserved for the Europeans, they took on the self identification of Black Irish and Black Dutch. And they did this so they could stay on their land and purchase more land. Because if they had not and maintained their Indian status, they would have ended up getting sent out west with the Trail of Tears. So now they have taxes they have to pay on this land. And 9 times out of 10, the governor is owning this land or some prominent official. So now they're on this land, they have to pay these taxes, and they can't pay the taxes, so now they got to work off this tax. Well, the taxes keep going up. So now they're under peonage. The person that you're paying the tax to is also the person that you're working for, so it's hard to get out of this vicious cycle. So hopefully that makes sense and I didn't make it worse. And if anybody can add to it on the panel to clarify, that'd be cool.
Well, if I could, just real quick, peonage, the term you use for essentially the assumption of reclassification, the consent, so to speak, of reclassification. Peonage comes from the base term or the root word peon. Okay, peonage is from dictionary definition the condition of being a peon, a system by which debtors are bound in servitude to their creditors until debts are paid. The holding by illegal methods of free Negroes or whites in the condition of semi-slavery, specifically in the southern part of the United States, also applied to the abuse of the convict release system of the South. And this is getting into where we're going with this. But peon is comparable to the term pawn, P-A-W-N. A pawn, as we know, is a common piece on the chessboard. Remember what we've been saying last few months about the chessboard and how that Masonic game is played, where you have two groups warring each other, black and white. The most common and the most utilized pieces on said chessboard are the pawns. So keep that in mind as you hear about peonage, as you hear about us accepting this Black Dutch and this Black Irish reclassification. All of that comes into play with this.
Thank you, appreciate you.
As I sent my son to summer camp today with a shirt that says always 7 steps in here, 3 steps. What's the night? How does the night move? 3, 7, 3. The letter 7. Never mind.
Yeah.
I sent him to school with a chest tee. Peace.
All right, so
I'll pick you later.
Grand Rising, that boy Wig. Hope all is well with you. So it goes on to say, talks about peonage. It says, under sway of cotton kings, who were at once their landlords, their employers, and their primary merchants, tools and necessities were advanced against the return of the crop, which was determined by the employer. When farmers were deemed to be in debt, and they often were, the negative balance was then carried over to the next season. A man or woman who protested this arrangement did so at the risk of grave injury or death. Refusing to work meant arrest under vagrancy laws and forced labor under the state penal system. Remember, there is a new form of slavery, incarceration. Well into the 20th century, black people spoke of their flight from Mississippi in the same manner as their runage ancestors had. The renegade ancestors had. In her 2010 book, The Warmth of Other Suns, Isabel Wilkerson tells of the story of Eddie Irvin, a spinach picker who fled Mississippi in 1963 after being made to work at gunpoint. You didn't talk about it or tell nobody, Irvin said. You had to sneak away. So what we're seeing now is that because of all of this forced slave labor, because that's what it is, and peonage and being a peon, now they're in a worse condition than they were when they was on their own land and having somebody squat on it. At least they had more rights. So this is what they're dealing with. So now people are starting to leave and go north. Look there, it says, okay, here we go. TMH about to go in. Gear up, y'all. So when Clyde Ross was still a child of Mississippi, authorities claimed his father owed $3,000 in back taxes. That's a lot of money, y'all. The elder Ross could not read. He did not have a lawyer. He did not know anyone at the local courthouse. He could not expect the police to be impartial. Effectively, the Ross family had no way to contest the claim and had no protection under the law. The authorities seized the land. They seized the buggy. They took the cows, hogs, and mules. And so for the upkeep of separate but equal, the entire Ross family was reduced to sharecropping.
Quick question.
What's up?
Is that considered legal or illegal what they're doing in this scenario?
They made it legal once they identified as Black Dutch or Black Irish, making themselves citizens.
And it's
that might go for the Choctaws in Mississippi too, right? They stay behind.
Yeah, because
remember the whole state of Mississippi, when they split, all the Indians that remained by default became citizens.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a choice.
And remember, the Indians that went west, and majority of them were, a lot of them were, especially of the 5 civilized tribes, they were your Métis, they were your American Indians.
Mm.
They declared the Choctaw that stayed no longer Indians.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically kicked them out of the tribe, which automatically made these individuals immigrants. So remember, the 14th Amendment made everybody that was born here, what? A citizen.
Mm.
So by default, they became Negroes and blacks. Even if they didn't determine themselves to be that way before the 14th Amendment. If your tribe disowned you, that moved out west, then you were in fact a citizen. So hopefully that helps.
You have been emancipated from the tribe.
Mm-hmm. So then it goes on to say this was hardly unusual. In 2001, the Associated Press published a 3-part investigation into the theft of block-owned land stretching back to the antebellum period. This series documents some 406 victims and 24,000 acres of land valued at tens of millions of dollars. The land was taken through means ranging from legal chicanery to terrorism. Some of the land taken from black families has become the country club in Virginia, the AP reported, as well as oil fields in Mississippi and baseball spring training facilities in Florida.
Come on, man. I don't want to hear none of that.
That's what happened. Clyde Ross was a smart child. His teacher thought he should attend a more challenging school. There was very little support for educated black people in Mississippi, but Julius Rosenwald, a part owner of the Sears and Roebuck, had begun an ambitious effort to build schools for black children throughout the South. Ross's teacher believed he should attend the school at the local Rosenwald School. It was too far for Ross to walk and get back in time. to work in the fields. Local white children had a school bus. Clyde Ross did not, and thus lost the chance to get a better education. Then, when Ross was 10 years old, a group of white men demands his only childhood possession, the horse with the red coat. "You can't have this horse. We want it," one of the white men said. They gave Ross's father $17. "I did everything for that horse," Ross told me. "Everything." And they took him. Put him on a racetrack. I never did know what happened to him after that, but I know they didn't bring him back. So that's just one of my losses. So then it goes on to say the losses mounted as sharecroppers. The Ross family saw their wages treated as landlords' slush fund. The landlords were supposed to split the profits from the cotton fields with the sharecroppers, but bales would often disappear during the count, or the split might be altered on a whim. If cotton was selling for 50 cents a pound, the Ross family might get 15 cents or only 5. One year, Ross's mother promised to buy him a $7 suit for a summer program at their church. She ordered the suit by mail, but that year Ross's family was paid only 5 cents a pound for the cotton. The mailman arrived with the suit. The Rosses could not pay. The suit was sent back. Clyde Ross did not go to the church program. It was in these early years that Ross began to understand himself as an American. He did not live under the blind decree of justice, but under the heel of a regime that elevated. Who is it? Under the heel of a regime that elevated armed robbery to a governing principle. He thought about fighting. "Just be quiet," his father told him, "because they'll come and kill us all." Clyde Ross grew. He was drafted into the Army. The draft officials offered him an exception if he stayed home and worked. He preferred to take his chances with the war. He was stationed in California. He found that he could go into stores without being bothered. He could walk the streets without being harassed. He can go into a restaurant and receive service. Ross was shipped off to Guam. He fought in World War II to save the world from tyranny. But when he returned to Clarksdale, he found that tyranny had followed him home. This was 1947, 8 years before Mississippi lynched Emmett Till and tossed his broken body into the Tallahatchie River. The Great Migration, a mass exodus of 6 million African Americans that spanned most of the 20th century, was now in a second wave. I'm going to repeat that. This was 1947, 8 years before Mississippi lynched Emmett Till and launched his broken body into the Tallahatchie River. The Great Migration, a mass exodus of 6 million African American or black Negroes that spanned most of the 20th century, was now in its second wave. So are they saying 12 million total? Because remember, there was about 14 million that ended up
Irish immigrants.
Exactly, thank you. That ended up coming to America. And they ended up going where? North. So now you got 6 million or maybe 12 million black folks, Negroes, head north. Come on, man.
That's another switcheroo. And that would leave a lot of land wide open in the South. And that would explain why when I was doing some of my traveling earlier this summer, I saw so much vacant land. Like they were begging people to buy up this land basically. And it kind of astounded me. Like you hear about all this overpopulation and crowding, and even, some of us feel like, maybe your neighbors are kind of on top of you. You just want some more room. And then you see land upon land upon land upon land. You think about that out west, that exists in the south as well.
Absolutely, especially if you're in anywhere in the western part of Louisiana and you go into you head into Texas, you start seeing the land get really flat, really spread out, and really uninhabited. I mean, acres and acres and acres of land you can see in the distance, all are just stretching into the horizon, and there's nothing there. There's nobody there, right? So you have to pay attention to how this changes not only the political and social landscape of the country, but how it literally changes the landscape, the physical landscape and land usage of America. It's profound during this period.
Yeah, you're dumping 12 million immigrants from Europe and Ireland into the United States of northern part. And then within 40 years later, you're having 6 to 12 million people migrate north. That's crazy. So, continue reading. It says, Clyde Ross was among them. He came to Chicago in 1947 and took a job as a taster at Campbell's Soup. He made a stable wage. He married. He had children. His paycheck was his own. No Klansman stripped him of the vote. When he walked down the street, he did not have to move because a white man was walking past. He did not have to take off his hat or avert his gaze. His journey from peonage to full citizenship seemed near complete. Only one item was missing: a home. That final badge of entry into the sacred order of the American middle class of the Eisenhower years. So then it goes on to read, in 1961, Ross and his wife bought a house in North Lawndale, a bustling community in Chicago's West Side. North Lawndale had long been a predominantly Jewish neighborhood, but a handful of middle-class African Americans had lived there starting in the 40s. The community was anchored by the Sprawling Sears and Roebuck headquarters. North Lawndale's Jewish People's Institute activity encouraged blacks to move into the neighborhood, seeking to make a pilot community for the interracial living. The community was anchored by Sprawling Sears and Roebuck headquarters, North Lawndale's Jewish People's Institute actively encouraged blacks to move into the neighborhood, seeking to make it a pilot community for interracial living. And the battle for immigration then being fought around the country. So, I smell a setup.
Me too. Because what else is a pilot? A project?
Mm-hmm.
Look at who's involved and look what's being said. Look at the setup that's actually taking place.
Right. This is all an experiment. Whether it's this or whether it's Pruitt Igoe out there in St. Louis, all of these things saw out as pilots. The testing.
If the Huguenots were gathered together on their landmass and forced to live in certain conditions, you think that they wouldn't come over here and see if that will work on another population that they're trying to subdue?
So think about this. You got this Jewish community, and they're inviting blacks or Negroes to come live with them for this project. That's interesting.
What part of the country is this located in?
This is Chicago.
Got it.
So remember we talked about this. So we're gonna tie up some ends and y'all see how this is working. Bones. Remember that USDA program for rural grants that you did a video on?
If Bones was asleep, he up now.
What
Yes, sir.
what year was that? What year was that instituted? 19 what?
19. Well, I think it's around 1930, 1940.
Uh-huh.
42, I think it is.
Uh-huh. Okay. So, watch. Here we go. Watch it.
But also too, what is this called again? What are they calling this?
A pilot
An
community.
experiment?
Yep, pilot community. Yep.
All right, an experiment goes by another name too. A project. Think about that.
Yep. Free said that earlier. So,
Oh, my bad.
it's all good. So then it goes on to read, in the battle for integration then being fought around the country, North Lawndale seemed to be offering promising terrain. But out in the tall grass, highwaymen, nefarious as any Clarksdale kleptocrat, were lying in the wait. So it says from 1930s to 1960s, black people across the country were largely cut out of the legitimate home mortgage market. So here's how they got hemmed up. 3 months after Clyde Ross moved into his house, the boiler blew out. This would normally be a homeowner's responsibility, but in fact, Ross was not really a homeowner. His payments were made to the seller, not the bank. And Ross had not signed a normal mortgage. He bought on contract, a predatory agreement that combined all the responsibilities of home ownership with all the disadvantages of renting. Where have we heard that before, predatory lending? Didn't that just happen that caused a housing crash in 2008?
That's a fact.
Sure did.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And who were the people that were predominantly hurt by that housing crash?
They look like me.
Okay. Just
Right.
checking. As Free says, ain't nothing new under the sun. History just keeps repeating itself.
Over and over.
So it says, he bought on contract a predatory agreement that combined all the responsibilities of home ownership with all the disadvantages of renting, while offering the benefits of neither. Ross had bought his house for $27,500. The seller, not the previous homeowner, but a new kind of middleman, had bought it for only $12,000 6 months before selling it to Ross. In the contract sale, the seller kept the deed until the contract was paid in full. And unlike it with a normal mortgage, Ross would require no equity. He would acquire no equity in the meantime.
Does that sound like a realty company?
A realty company that's subleasing. Ross would acquire no equity in the meantime. If he missed a single payment, he would immediately forfeit his $1,000 down payment, all his monthly payments, and the property itself. The men who peddled contracts in North Lawndale would sell homes at inflated prices and then evict families who could not pay. Taking their down payment and their monthly installments as profits, they bring in another black family, rinse and repeat. He loads them up with the payments they can't meet. An office secretary told the Chicago Daily News of her boss, the speculator Lou Fushionist, in 1963. Then he takes the property away from them. He sold some of the buildings 3 or 4 times. So here's the thing that people are not thinking about. Where are these people going that lose their house?
And then what you would call welfare.
Or the projects, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Apartment complexes in these tall buildings. Caprini Green? Wasn't that in Chicago?
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, the Pruitt Igo was I want to say it's out there in St. Louis. They brought in Japanese architects to build this high-rise tenement up, and they call it a project because again, just like the thing with the Jewish neighborhood where they were having Negroes come in, it was a project. It was something they were going to try to see if they could fix a problem that they had with housing at the time. And they brought a bunch of us in. They put us in these tenements, and things were great for a long time until you started seeing some of the restrictions come in. And as they restricted things, the money not only left, the maintenance left, the security left, the fathers left, and so on and so forth.
So the project really was, we get you in this house that you can't afford to live in. We rape you for a couple of months financially, and then we force you to move into these apartments, aka Cabrini Greens.
Right.
And then we start taking these gangs, these police officers, injecting some of the neighborhood with drugs, injecting them, because there were people I know that actually said they were abducted by police and they were shot up with drugs. That's how they became addicts. And then we start finding young men who don't have a place to live because they can't get a job and make them drug dealers. Then you have your war on drugs in the 80s. So here we go. Let's go into detail how it all took place. It says Ross had tried to get legitimate mortgage in another neighborhood, but was told by a loan officer that there was no financing available. The truth was that there was no financing for people like Clyde Ross. From 1930s through the 60s, black people across the country were largely cut out of the legitimate home mortgage market through means both legal and extra-legal. Chicago whites employed every measure from restrictive covenants to bombings to keep their neighborhoods segregated. Their efforts were buttressed by the federal government in 1934. Congress created the Federal Housing Administration, and it ensured private mortgages causing a drop in interest rates and a decline in the size of the down payment required to buy a house. But an insured mortgage was not a possibility for Clyde Ross. The FHA had adopted a system of maps that rated neighborhoods according to their perceived stability. On the maps, green areas rated A indicated in demand. Neighborhoods that, as one appraised put it, lacked a single foreigner or Negro. These neighborhoods were considered excellent prospects for insurance. Neighborhoods where black people lived were rated D and were usually considered ineligible for FHA backing. They were colored in the red. Neither the percentage of black people living there nor their social class mattered. Black people were viewed as a contagion. Redlining went on beyond FHA Redlining went on beyond FHA-backed loans and spread to the entire mortgage industry, which was already rife with racism, excluding black people from most legitimate means of obtaining a mortgage. So then it says, a government offering such bounty to buildings and lenders could have required compliance with the non-discriminatory policy. Charles Abrams, the urban studies expert who helped create the New York City Housing Authority, wrote in 1955. Instead, the FHA adopted a racial policy that could well have been culled from the Nuremberg laws. The devastating effects are cogently outlined by Melvin L. Oliver and Thomas M. Shapiro in their books Black Wealth, White Wealth. It says, locked out the greatest mass-based opportunity for wealth accumulation in American history. African Americans who desired and were able to afford home ownership found themselves consigned to central city communities where their investments were affected by the self-fulfilling prophecies of the FHA appraisers. Cut off from sources of new investment, their homes and communities deteriorated and lost value in comparison to those homes and communities that FHA appraised deemed desired. In Chicago and across the country, whites looked to achieve the American dream could rely on legitimate credit system backed by the government. Blacks were herded into the signs of unscrupulous lenders who took them for money and for sport. It was like people who like to go and shoot lions in Africa. It was the same thrill. A housing attorney told the historian Beryl Sater in a 2009 book, Family Properties, the thrill of the chase and the kill. The kill was profitable. At this time, his death, Lou Fushionist owned more than 600 properties, many of them in North Lawndale, and his estate was estimated to be worth $3 million. He made much of his money by exploiting the frustrated hopes of black migrants like Clyde Moss. During this period, according to one estimate, 85% of all black home buyers who bought in Chicago bought on contract. 85% of all black homeowners who bought in Chicago bought on contract. If anybody who is well established in this business in Chicago doesn't earn $100,000 a year, contract seller told the Saturday Evening Post in 1962, he is loafing. There ain't no need for me to read.
Wait, what?
He is loafing if they're not making $100,000 in the 1960s selling contracts.
Wow. So they were just getting them hand over fist.
Yep. Because these people are moving from the South. They're being
Right,
pushed
in
north.
droves.
And they're like, oh man, the only thing that's missing is a house, so I'm gonna buy a house. Oh, all I gotta do is put this money down and I gotta make these payments. And as long as I don't miss a payment, I get to keep it. Most definitely. Well, the problem is, you didn't think you was gonna be missing a payment because you ain't gotta worry about the Klan. Well, there's other issues that's gonna arise. They're selling you stuff with defective parts of the home that they probably put in the home so that you would miss payment. Because the goal is to get you in the projects, get you out the house and get you into a rental situation.
Right.
That's how we ended up in the renting these type of predatory loans.
I'll continue to grip my back motors. This is blood boiling, like just to see how.
The dentist.
What you say, Bones?
Just got finished making an appointment with the dentist.
I think I'm gonna be next. This is. I enjoy being able to go through this information, like in a group setting, because some of the stuff, just some of the triggers that it hits, it just makes your blood want to boil. Ooh. All right.
It does, and we see how we ended up in this. It was a concerted effort by the government and the businesses to do this to us, to keep us here.
Yeah, the disenfranchisement was real. When you look at that, you think of a family coming from the South. They're just trying to have peace and stability, trying to get away from the terrorism of the Klan. So you end up in the North, and then you end up in a faulty structure intentionally. Kind of like the whole used car thing that a lot of our people are wrapped up in, where you have just enough to buy a car, and then that something happens with that, and if you miss work, it's just like a perpetual cycle that they put so many people in. And then you end up losing your home and you end up in one of these projects. Now imagine all the different things that actually comes from, over there, the way they set up or established a lot of these areas. The gang culture, that wasn't ours. We were tribal. We weren't gang related type people. We were tribal. The prostitution, the different things that are related to the drugs, all of that related to the ghetto. You see where it came from. Then you see who actually put your ancestors there. And on top of that, just the way the whole job market goes and the welfare system to top it all off. Like, if we haven't disenfranchised you enough, you kick the man out the house, you know what, you won't have to pay any rent, or you could just pay a few dollars for rent. But again, like, how stable is this for the children? Look at the environment that they have to be in. They're creating a sense of perpetual slavery. It's disgusting.
By throwing debt and more debt on top of you. And before you know it, 3 generations down the line is so far behind in debt. We end up to this place where we at now.
And I am clear. I know that it wasn't the entire South. I'm not implying. I hope it didn't come across that I was saying the entire South. I'm just talking about for the ones who did. And we heard about the second wave of 6 million. Not sure what the first wave was, but I mean that's a lot of people. That's a lot of lives impacted for a lot of generations.
Oh, the first wave, that's the Trail of Tears. Only was 2 big migrations that happened on this landmass during all this time. Unless there's one hidden in history we ain't find yet. They saying this is the second mass migration. So what was the other mass migration before this? Trail-a-tears, the so-called Trail-a-tears, we'll say.
Well, let's look at how they label or layer things. This can't be the second migration of Negroes, because if that's the case, the first migration wasn't of Negroes. The first migration was of Indians. So they're saying the second migration of Negroes, then there's got to be another migration that we're missing. Because you figure the Trail-a-tears happened between 1820 and basically 1840. And then there was the Civil War. So you figure after the emancipation, right, think about it. The first migration happened after during the Civil War, when everybody went north because they were now citizens to escape the South, to be emancipated. That's probably the first migration. I could be wrong.
Not everybody. Just keeping in line with what Gold reminded me of.
Yeah, I'm not saying everybody, but I'm talking about a lot of people probably did go north because they figured it would be better than staying south, especially with all the Klan and stuff coming about in the late 1800s.
I'm with you.
So if I had to guess, that would have been the first migration right after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, which could not again enforce anything in the South, because Abraham Lincoln was not the president of the South. He was only president of the Union. So basically, something to think about. I mean, and that's pretty much how a lot of our ancestors ended up north. It's how a lot of you ended up north. You got forced.
You find your roots all in the South.
Exactly. So, Bones, you want to talk a little bit about, this banking system? Was there anything that you want to share or you want to bring up? Because I'm pretty much done with the reading as far as breaking everything down and how our ancestors ended up from stewardship and ownership to now being tenants and renters.
Yeah, I was going to save it for tomorrow's Rising show because it's a lot. It's a lot. But it also ties in to what we're talking about now.
Okay, that's cool.
So what I'll do is give me a second. Let me pull up the first beginning to give people, so people can start looking into it. Give me like 2 minutes.
All right, no worries. How y'all feeling out there? Y'all hard hats still on? Chin straps still on, excuse me.
I'm still fuming. I'm trying to calm myself down. Oof. It's a lot of information. And I know I just grabbed a lot of it and ran through time, but it's just seeing what is happening in real time to us as a people, as a collective, has to be stopped. It has to be changed. It has to be turned around. It has to be done.
Well, yeah, because as soon as the closer we get to the present, the more we feel it. We talking about the 60s or something. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bones.
No, just going to read a little bit on the banking system. Well, mainly we're dealing with the bubble, the Mississippi bubble.
Okay.
Just a brief passage from it. Tomorrow we're going to dive deep into it. It states in 1718, there were only 700 Europeans in Louisiana. The Mississippi Company arranged ships to move 800 more, who landed in Louisiana in 1718, doubling the European population. John Law encouraged Germans, particularly Germans of Alsatian region, who had recently fallen under French rule and the Swiss to immigrate. They give their name to the regions of the Côte des Allemands and the Lac des Allemands in Louisiana, Lac des Allemands. It goes on to state, prisoners were set free in Paris in September 1719 onwards.
Hold on, stop for a second. Stop for a second.
Yeah, warning, my bad. Yeah, this needs a warning. Yeah.
Hey, put y'all hats on, strap them down, tight. I ain't setting no alarms, I ain't setting nothing, but I'm telling y'all, strap them down.
Yeah, I almost did it to them. I'm sorry, relatives, I almost did it to them. All right, y'all ready?
So,
all right, here we go.
So back up because you stuck in the word about the Swiss. We got some Swiss over here?
Yes, because you got to remember, Swiss, Germans, all these people they go back to what? Franks.
Oh, yeah.
They're all
right.
Franks.
Yeah.
It goes on to state, it says, prisoners were set free in Paris in September 1719 onwards, under the condition that they marry prostitutes and go with them to Louisiana.
Stop. First of all, Macadon 1 says, where are you reading from?
Hold on, I'll put the link in there.
And then Pamela Hall says, Bones, read slow. We can hear it good. See, y'all spoiled. Y'all know that? Y'all are very spoiled. Y'all are the most spoiled chat on the planet.
They really are.
Okay, posted in the chat, and it says again, prisoners were set free in Paris in September 1719 onwards. Under the condition, prisoners.
Okay.
Under the condition that they marry prostitutes and go with them to Louisiana. The newly married couple were chained together. Again, the newly married couples were chained together and taken to the port of embarkation. In May 1720, after complaints from the Mississippi Company and the concession is about this class of French immigrants, the French government prohibited such deportations. However, there was a third shipment of prisoners in 1721.
Just stop. Clear the blast area. Clear that cotton picking blast area. We gotta drop some bombs. Didn't I tell you to put your hard hat on? I'm done.
Why did that sound like corporal punishment?
Boom.
Yeah, thank you, Don. That's why we try to put it in there ahead of time in the form, so when you read it, and when you get brought back up, it don't hit you as hard. Because, the first time doing it, it's a doozy.
Man. Come on, man.
You have to break down what that means. Just in language.
Yeah, that's why I'm letting everybody process that. I'm letting everybody process this process.
It's funny because one of the things that you read, when you read it, it sounded like it was saying that they were taking them to customs. That wasn't the verbiage you used, but that's how I was processing it in my head. And yeah, just considering one of the customs that come from them, yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Makes you think about that slogan, the old ball and chain.
I'm gonna give you some fresh eyes on that one. That is for sure.
Hold on.
Why we wear rings now? What we symbolizing with these rings around us? We prisoners. What?
Who told us to do that? Those are traditions.
A
I want to put these rings on your finger. Come on, it's okay.
Prostitute and a convict, yo. A prostitute and a convict.
Not a bride and a broom. A
Mm-mm.
prostitute and a
So
convict.
so check this out. What's the first three letters of prostitute?
Ooh. Pro.
Pro, right?
Pro.
What's the first three letters of a convict? Got to be more careful.
Pros and
Con.
cons.
You know what?
You gotta weigh the pros and cons.
Oh, hold on. I'm gonna leave this right here. I'll be back.
Come on,
Real
man.
talk. This will make you don't want to read no more. It'll make you don't want to read no more. You're like,
You
you know,
gotta
if
do
ain't no pictures in the, it ain't no pictures in the book, I don't even want to see a book some days. What?
We gotta do it.
Madness, I tell you. Madness.
The big boy Wig says you might be on to something. Hey man, I look. When I first, I was like prostitutes and convicts. Pros and cons. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. The pros and prids is what I see.
Positive, negative, male, female. They layer
Three.
this information
Don't do it,
so
three.
heavy. I'm trying
do it,
not
three.
to. My legs over here bouncing. I'm trying not to. All right, you said tomorrow
Woo.
rising.
Yeah, we just gonna leave y'all with that. Prostitutes.
Well, tomorrow, yeah, we're going to go more into the banking part on it. You know, that was just a brief because it gets way deeper. Yeah. Y'all thought that was heavy. That's nothing. That was just a little brief. The lightest part to display as a cliffhanger, I would say.
We'll put it in. We'll make sure we put that in a chat, the forum for tomorrow, so y'all can catch up on it. And that big boy says this is too deep, bruh. Man, listen, you gotta know what I mean. It's about to get.
Yeah, banks. You'll be surprised who's behind the banking system and where it comes from. It will shock you.
Oh, Cliff Tiff says, I don't want no more, Gina.
Oh,
I don't want to fight no more. I don't want to fight no more.
oh.
Look, man, that's all this is y'all fault. It's the chat fault. Y'all keep asking questions. So here you
The
go.
right questions at that.
There it is. Y'all fault. Don't get
Thank
mad at
you.
us. That's why we tell y'all put them hard hats on. Y'all put them on, y'all ask questions, and now this is what you get. So I don't know.
Trust me, we're going through it with you.
Yeah, we get pre-concussion.
Mercy. That we can test the safety equipment. Oh.
Pamela Hall says we have to fix this. Lord, we have to fix this.
Indeed.
Big boy Wig says, be careful what you ask for sure. Macadon 1.
Macadon, you want it.
I don't think I'm all right.
On target on it, yes, sir.
What you
I had
say?
to check off that pros and cons. I had to check off that pros and cons. I went to actually, my brain went to go breaking that down. Like, like, you know what? I ain't gonna do it.
I'm just saying that's what I saw. I was like, prostitutes and convicts. I'm like, wait a minute, pros and cons? Are we serious right now?
But look at what we know on what we uncovered last week. We know there was 10,000 prostitutes. So if they sent them, each prostitute is a convict, that's at least 20,000 people they sent to Louisiana.
And look at the caliber of people that they're bringing to that area. Imagine how your area would change, the land you live on, if all of a sudden you have a large group of pros and cons. I mean, come on now.
Oh, Cliff Tip says, I'm wearing my space jumpsuit and a helmet on tomorrow. A space jumpsuit? Oh, Cliff Tip, really? The space jumpsuit?
Yeah, I think. Let me know where you got that from. I think I'm gonna need me one too. Whew.
Makes you look at it differently when they say the government's full of crooks.
Well,
Lectio difficilior. Just saying.
you gotta get out of jail. You get to get out of jail, but you gotta marry a prostitute. And that probably don't
Well,
make
the
the
game is
prostitute feel no
Monopoly,
better.
which is French. So nepotism, you get out of jail free card. So whomever you leave, you typically keep it in the family.
Yep. Now, what did you think these 20,000 people with these habits did in New Orleans?
They was pros at kind of people. They got you coming.
But when they talk about,
they ain't
I'm
going.
sorry. So when they talk about that, there were times where people came over and like raped our ancestors. Then you have a bunch of rapists that you're sending over here. Seems a bit intentional. Like, come on now. We gotta stop it with this fluff history that we're giving. Because
But now the crazy part that we talked about last night. Hard hats on. Please don't take them off. Strap them down. Free mentioned something. You got these criminals, these rapists, who came over here with European prostitute wives. Mess around, rape an Aboriginal woman, have children. Now, the children with the Aboriginal woman, they're Aboriginal because that's what their mother is. The children with the European woman, they're European because that's what their mother is. But at the end of the day, they're brothers and sisters.
Say it again. I don't think they heard you.
You have this French man who came over here with a French woman who laid with an Aboriginal woman, because we know they was able to have two wives. We uncovered that last week. So now you have children with the Aboriginal women. Them children are Aboriginal because that's what their mother is. You have children with the European woman. They are European because that's what their mother is. But at the end of the day, these children are siblings. So now when this Indian child or this Matisse child gets into power and he's making deals and stuff, we have to start looking at it. A lot of these people could have been siblings. That's why genealogy is key. Very important. Clear that.
That big boy Wig says, did your boy say that they not bringing their best? Who was he really talking about? David Corey says original name for gumbo is okra. Oh.
That same scenario that Bones just provided, if you think about how that would apply when we were talking about some of these treaties being signed and who they would send. And in that scenario, that could be a family member going to another family member.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole sense of like where you see where the tribe will get screwed over, maybe like the person who got sent will be set up real nice, the Indian agent. Now you can kind of see how that was actually playing out and how it was actually possible. And it still goes on to this day.
Especially when your daddy.
You know that a lot of you know that a lot of the presidents are family or related. Do you think that doesn't go through Congress and the Senate? And then a lot of the people who you see rubbing elbows, you find out that they're related, whether it's like in Hollywood too. Again, New France, Huguenot territory.
Yo, when your mama is a prostitute and your daddy is a crook, you gonna have some hustling tendencies. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
But your brother and sister is an Indian.
So you got an in.
So imagine if the two don't have any, they're straight Slavs, and the same scenario occurs. So now, when you hear about Indians buying slaves or Slavs, and then later you hear, well, they were buying their own family members to keep them from actually becoming slaves. Now, does that make more sense to you?
Makes a lot of sense.
Buying their brothers and sisters and family members. Because sure indeed, they probably didn't look alike, but a lot of them shared the same fathers.
Yep.
Exactly.
Half sisters and half brothers can make him a whole Indian if they adopt it.
And we do know that tribes adopted.
Yep. So you can be 100% European and your family got adopted into a tribe that makes you indigenous to this land.
Especially if your half brother or your half sister sits in any place of influence on that tribe. Just think about it.
And then that will also switch up the way the tribe as a whole, the way that they would look. Because when you bring in a new group of people, then a lot of times that will start changing that up. So you can see where, either it might have been different people. It could have started off being certain people. And then, as life and time and whatnot continues, and they end up amalgamating with other cultures and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's really vitally important to know who is who. But even more important to know who you are. Because otherwise, you'll be sitting watching an indigenous channel sit there next to a house coffee. None the wiser. It's time to go ahead and step it up and get to the next place. When you know better, you can do better. Yeah, let's just keep moving forward. We're making good progress, but let's keep moving forward. We still have a lot more road to go, so let's go.
Got work to do. Got a lot of work to do. So do that genealogy, because you just can't be dependent on the fact that you indigenous to this land. Somebody else, that's go ahead, Bones.
And I'll say it again. Remember what we learned about the Matisse, that they mingled with themselves for so long, they became their own distinct people. Now imagine how many groups of people did that across this landmass. Again, showing the importance of genealogy.
All right, I think people's concussions have subsided. So how about we go ahead and release them early today? How about we do this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bones.
Gotta do some shaking off. Yeah, shake it off. Woo!
So we gonna let Lady Free go first, because ladies first. Send these people off on a good note, so they can.
I'm not sure if they can hear me or not. However, just do your genealogy. Remember who you are. Think tribally, and have a blissful day. And until we meet again.
All right. No sellout. What you got for us, bro?
Trying to find the mute button. Peace, everybody. Appreciate everybody for coming out today. Hopefully nobody has a concussion. Mic check.
1, 2.
3, 4. We hear you.
Okay. Links in the chat. Still waiting on an email from somebody that has a question, comment, concern, or correction. Assembly@gmail.com. Peace, y'all.
Copper Indio. What you got for us, bro?
Yes, sir. Once again, I appreciate the ability to come on the panel and chop it up with you guys and exchange notes. As you guys well know, I go and collect notes as much as I can while we're on the off hours, and I try to make sure that the information that I find gets shared with everybody as much as possible. It is great to be able to take what you guys find, match it to what I found, and then have this confluence of understanding of what's going on. And they say all the world's a stage, and we're seeing the whole theater play out. We're seeing it play out on the social level, on the political level, on the geographic level, and I'm as Lady Free said earlier in the show, I'm amazed at how much we're able to put together, how many of these dots we're able to connect to finally get a picture of how we got here. So I always appreciate the opportunity, and thank everybody for tuning in, staying engaged, continuing to ask questions, and continuing to search for the truth. Thank you all.
As always, Copper, we appreciate the information that you bring. We know you're a very busy individual, and the fact that you take time out of your schedule, come on the panel, bring us your insight and your study. We definitely appreciate that.
It's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say shout out to the panel for all you do. Y'all make what I do a lot easier, and y'all make it fun. Shout out to the chat. Arguably the smartest and the best chat in all of YouTube. We definitely appreciate y'all for challenging us, for making us work. Yes, y'all spoiled. Yeah, I said it. Y'all spoiled, but it's okay. Still love y'all. Thank you to the new subscribers for coming on and subscribing and listening. Thank you for those who are listening and just, getting this information and passing it on to their relatives, their community, and making a difference. Just because we can't see you, we know for a fact that you can hear us. So we hope that we provide valuable information to you. And at the end of the day, we here to help. So, hit us up if you got any questions, and we'll do what we can to provide you with the resources that you need to take you from where you are to where you want to go with your genealogy and being financially independent. And with that, I'm going to leave it to Bones H. McCoy to take us away, and I relinquish the mic.
All right. Appreciate the panel for today's show. Appreciate the chat and everyone listening, making this possible. And also remember that today's show and all prior shows, all links and the information are in the form on the website, so you can always continue the conversation, look over the information for yourself, see the sources for yourself. So it's not us just telling you the information, you're actually seeing it for yourself. Don't also remember, throughout your day, take some time out to push further your genealogy. Talk to people about genealogy, encourage people to get involved in it. And on that note, it's always fun when we get to kick it with the relatives. No place we'd rather be. And until tomorrow's Rising Show, peace.
Peace, everyone.
Peace, y'all.
Peace, y'all.